And welcome back to Mount Pleasant, and we are of course coming to you from the Moffat Hall in Mount Pleasant here in Hermanus, and this is the first of two coverage points for the Western Cape election debates. We're here this morning, and on Friday we will be in the city of Cape Town. Well, also just to bring you up to speed with the number of parties, we have quite a big panel here this morning, 10 parties in all, and there are still parties not represented because there are 34 parties all in all contesting the elections in the Western Cape. So we are going to try and accommodate some of the others in Cape Town, but as you know, we're never going to get to everybody. But getting back to the business at hand, we were talking about the question of poverty, but let me just throw some of the comments at you that have been coming through as this particular debate is unfolding, because we are in the Western Cape, but of course we're getting comments from all over the country. Okay, this one from People's Councillor says, Sakina, can you please ask Alan Windy, how will he improve delivery of houses in the Western Cape? Can you please ask Patricia de Lille if she sent the SMS or not? And we have not forgotten about Rasool's brown envelope as the electorate. And then this one here from C. De Lange says, loving your debates. Just a quick question. I missed the introduction. Could you clarify if these are all premier candidates for the Western Cape? If Mr. Manyi and Rasool are not premier candidates, what is wrong with their premier candidates that they are not there? And then a few others as well. Temba Ndebele says, the DA has said it all. The country needs to attract foreign investment, and at the moment we are struggling with that. Are there any sort of business relations the opposition parties made with potential foreign investors that will ensure economic growth in the country? Spelele says, please ask Mzwanele Manyi if he still stands by his words that the Western Cape has an oversupply of colored people and that they should stop the over-concentration and spread to the rest of the country. I heard him saying they believe in one human race. And then a few others as well, but let me park that there. As you can see, the point there is that the electorate hasn't forgotten things you have said in the past. They remember all the things you have done and all the things you have said. But getting back, if I can just get to Mr. Christians, you have the mic there. You also raised some socio-economic issues that of course go hand in hand with the poverty question. So let's get your view on that.
I think that one of the big things is corruption, and that must be dealt with. Corruption must be dealt with. We must strengthen prosecuting authorities and the public protector and those type of things. And I don't think the ANC is very serious when it comes to dealing with corruption. Crime is another. You see, we must have an enabling environment for business to prosper. And when you come and the EFF and the ANC talks about land expropriation without compensation, it brings policy uncertainty. So that's a big problem. So we must have policy certainty. But another thing is crime is a big problem. Now I know, and I mean, I'm in the legislature, I know how it works, but I believe with Section 206, subsection 3, the province have enough power because it's not, crime is just not police. You must have the community, neighborhood watches, police community forums. You must have them all and the community to address crime. So you cannot just blame national government and say we cannot do anything when it comes to crime. If you're the government, you must govern, and what you have in your hand, that is what you must do. So there's a lot of factors when it comes to poverty. And of course, education is important, but what does it mean if a person graduates and cannot find a job? It means that education is not linked to our business, and that must be linked. So when I'm finished, there's a job waiting for me. So there's a lot of policies that the ACDP do have, and we can make a difference when we govern on the 8th of May 2019.
Would you agree, though, that that is easier said than done? Because how do you revamp an entire education system? We saw the mess that it created at the beginning of this democracy. What was it called? Curriculum 2000 and something, and it was, yeah, and it went through a whole series of revisions to get to the point where we are now. So how are you going to do that?
It's very simple. There is a way to do it. If you look at Zimbabwe have better results than we have, and they spend less on education per child. Zimbabwe. So we have we've been. I'm in the legislature. I've sit on the education portfolio committee. There is ways and means to do it. The problem, we need to look at the entire country, because we get 20,000 pupils every year into our system. So we need to cater for that. So what we're saying, that money must follow the learner in order, because our classes is too big. You know, you cannot teach 50, 60 in a class. So
whose fault is that, though? Whose fault is that?
So this is what I say. The money must follow the pupils. At the moment, it's not following the pupils. So when we get people from the Eastern Cape, the money doesn't follow. So that must follow. You understand what I'm saying? Because otherwise, we will have overcrowded schools. We must... If a child goes to Langa or Bonteheuwel, it's not the same education when it comes to Kansway.
That sounds very much like the oversupply of colored people.
No,
it sounds very much like that.
No. Don't twist my words, please. Don't twist my words.
I'm not twisting your words. I'm saying the budget sounds very much like
I said the
that
budget,
sort of comment.
No, listen to me. I said the budget must follow the people. That's all what I'm saying. The budget. So national government must release the funds when it comes to people.
So that problem, Mr. Christians, is not peculiar to the Western Cape.
I know.
Every other province, especially Gauteng, has a bigger problem in that regard.
Yes.
They don't say the money must follow the people. You need to make do with what you have. But I'm telling you what, I'm going to move on because I need to get to other issues. Let's come to the land question. Poverty and land.
I didn't hear you, Sakina.
I'm saying, let's discuss the issue. Thank you. Thank you very much. Poverty and land.
Sakina, as a land party, you are very clear. We want to introduce what you call poverty development plan program. That will be assisting to alleviate poverty. Currently, for instance, you've got a challenge of bloated cabinet. We're saying, as the government of the land party, we want to reduce ministers to 10 because you've got useless departments that you don't need in our state.
Just give me 2 useless departments.
Come again?
Just 2 useless departments.
Sports, Department of Sport. It's useless. It's useless. So, it's useless.
Okay.
Yes, I can elaborate. Currently, you've got a crisis in this country. The money that's supposed to go to the development, direct to the development from the children, starting from the school, it does not go there. Politicians in that department and directors are misusing that money, and it goes to the wrong direction. So what we are saying is that take that money direct to the schools, so that the children can be developed from the schools rather than giving the money to the department. That's what we are talking about. The other thing, Sakina, the other thing we are saying, the issue of personal income tax, reduce it. Because currently public servants, they've got a burden of high income tax. Now lower it. Again, what you need to do, Sakina, is very simple. You'll go to your businesses that are there, are overtaxed by government. You know, lot of useless tariffs that are there. Remove those tariffs. Make sure that the environment of business in South Africa is very conducive, so that each and every person who wants to open a business, it's easy to operate. Small businesses, Sakina, make sure you introduce voluntary tax. Now you've got a voluntary tax, but currently, if you've got a small business, you are going to be charged by SARS because you are not complying on tax. So we are saying, relieve the tax burden and make sure the companies, in fact, instead of giving more money to government, politicians who are corrupt, they are taking that money direct to the employers. That's where you will be able to abolish the issue of minimum wage and introduce what you call a living wage. Because what we are saying, the issue of minimum wage, it's an exploitation of workers. Introduce a living wage whereby an individual will be able to feed his or her own family. Okay. That is what we are talking about.
Let me move to the EFF because the land party says, let's reduce taxes. The ANC, which I believe is a bit of a hollow victory all the same, but talking about reducing poverty by having people on social grants. is not really the answer. But it's something, I'm going to come back to you. It's something, but it is not the answer. When you have over 17 million people of your population on social grants, and people are talking about reducing taxes because they are suffering, how are you going to maintain that?
First of all, you start by restructuring the spheres of government, doing away with the provincial governance, which is totally also useless. This is where the money, if you would check the situation of the Western Cape, this is where the national government and the provincial government are playing a tug of war between the ANC national government and the DA1, whereby services do not actually come to the people because there is a tug of war between two spheres of governance, of which cheap politicking of the DA would easily say they are creating lots of jobs in the Western Cape. But if you go back and look, they would even be counting in their states, including even artisanship, learnership and all that. That is not done by them. They are including even the easily identifiable the easily identifiable what we call it, labor brokering jobs, and of which they are there to ensure that our people are being exploited. So as the EFF will see to it that we first restructure governance. We will also, the issue of land, the first crime that was committed in South Africa was the issue of land dispossession. That is a determination of the poverty of South Africa. Anyone in South Africa who has got means of production or who's not poor, you easily see by access to land. Even if our people can be educated to the core, you will find them at the robots in each and every intersection with their graduation accounts, claiming that they are unemployed. There's a number of people who are very much skilled in South Africa. They are still unemployed. Why? Because government doesn't have the state capacity that the EFF is talking about. If you build state capacity, you would be able to create sustainable jobs. If mines would fall under government, would be able to create sustainable jobs that are under governance. Unlike now, whereby we would find our people are utilized as cheap labor. And then as the EFF was saying, we would create a government that would be able to bring investment. The investment that must come to South Africa, it must come to areas where we used to have industries that have been neglected by the current government.
Okay, let me come to Atta, because you actually service the poorest of the poor in this country. What's your solution to poverty?
Thank you, Sakina. There are two socio-economic issues that we cannot separate from one another. One is the question of crime and poverty, which are caused by unemployment. So what I want to highlight is that the taxi industry has already employed more than 500,000 operators, which is drivers. But they are not being subsidized by the government. You know, this is a black-owned business that has employed these people. Another thing that we need to look at are the hawkers of the vendors who are operating in the taxi ranks. There are so many of them, thousands of them in the country who are selling fruits, sweets, and so on. And those people are feeding their families. So what I'm trying to put across is that ATA is already fighting poverty whilst we are still not in government. How much more than when we are in government after the 8th of May? You know,
right, that's
another
ATA.
thing.
Yes.
Okay, another point that we are looking at is the question of dropouts. Dropouts, you know, from if you look at the learners who are starting grade 1, and when you look at grade 12, you find out that if it was 1 million in grade 1, then when they get to grade 12, it's only about 500,000 learners. Then the question is, where is another 500? And what the government is doing about those children. So ATA is saying that those must be notified, and a school of skills should be created so that those children can be taken to school to try and reduce crime. You know.
And just before we go to a break, we need to take a break. But Mr. Rasool, you wanted to come in on the issue of the social grants. More than 17 million people in this country on social grants.
No, Sakina, I want to say that in
Can we
the
just give Mr.
15-year
Rasool a
review,
hearing, please?
in the 15-year review, for example, of poverty in this country, it was found that on the economic wage, just what people earn in the economy, the Gini coefficient was in fact 0.72, closer to 1, meaning greater inequality and greater poverty. After you factor in a matter like social grants and social interventions, the Gini coefficient for our people begin to drop to 0.62, a whole 0.1 that it goes down. So I would be the last one to disparage the impact that it has of putting food on the table, getting children to school, getting people clothed, and all of those kind of things.
But that is not the issue. The issue is that it is not sustainable. The issue is we need to get South Africans into employment.
No, I agree with you.
We need to get people
but
working
a 60-year-old getting into employment is reduced. The possibility of a disabled person and a child under the age of 18, that's not the employable categories. For those categories of people, the social security, the grants, the pensions is the absolute bulwark against poverty.
Mr. Rasool,
and so we should not
if you
disparage
get those parents to work, they would be able to take care of their
I'm
children
sure
and
that
not
there are
rely
parents who
on
want to
social
work.
grants.
We should not get to the issue of being lazy and that they do not work.
I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick break and then we will come back, continue with this debate. Many questions, but let me just point out to the audience, we do have a mic there in the center, so you can start lining up and let's do that orderly and give each other an opportunity. I want to take questions from the floor right after I address the question of corruption with the panel. We'll come to that. We'll come back to you, Mr. Windy, as well. All right, so let's take a break.